I have a quick challenge for you. Think of someone you wanted desperately to like you, not someone who already loved you, not someone who made things easy, the person who gave you mixed signals, the person who seemed just out of reach, the one who took forever to text back, the one who never quite chose you. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. Why did that person occupy so much space in your mind? Why did the people who liked you often seem less exciting than the people who didn't? And why can rejection sometimes make feelings stronger instead of weaker? It sounds irrational. It sounds like a bug in your brain. But here's the strange truth. Your brain wasn't designed to simply chase love. It was designed to chase uncertainty. And that's where this story begins. Imagine you're waiting for a text. You check your phone. Nothing. 10 minutes later. Still nothing. An hour later. Finally. A message. Instant relief. Instant excitement. Your mood jumps. But here's the thing. The excitement isn't coming only from the person. Part of it is coming from the uncertainty. Because your brain pays special attention to rewards that arrive unpredictably. And some of the most powerful evidence for this comes from psychology and neuroscience research on reinforcement. Back in the 1950s, psychologist B.F. Skinner demonstrated something fascinating. Animals often worked hardest for rewards that arrived unpredictably rather than consistently. Not knowing exactly when a reward would appear kept them engaged. The uncertainty itself became compelling. Humans aren't pigeons in a box, but your reward systems respond to unpredictability too. When someone's affection is inconsistent, your brain keeps searching for patterns, searching for answers, searching for certainty, and that search can become emotionally intense. Sometimes more intense than relationships where affection is freely given. But that raises a question. Why doesn't rejection simply make you lose interest? Shouldn't your brain look at someone who doesn't want you and move on? Logically, yes. Biologically, not always. Because rejection doesn't just shut down desire. Sometimes it activates it. One of the most influential studies on this came from researchers at the University of Michigan and other institutions examining social rejection and reward systems. Using brain imaging, researchers found that rejection can activate regions involved in emotional pain. But here's the surprising part. Romantic rejection can also keep reward-related systems highly active. In other words, the person who rejected you can continue occupying the very systems involved in wanting and motivation. The relationship may be over. The pursuit system may not be. Which helps explain something many people have experienced. You know someone isn't interested. You know they're wrong for you. You know continuing to think about them is making you miserable. And yet your brain keeps returning to them. Not because you're irrational. Because the circuits involved in wanting aren't the same as the circuits involved in making calm decisions. Now let's talk about one of the most famous brain chemicals in existence. Dopamine. You've probably heard people call dopamine the pleasure chemical. That's not quite accurate. Many neuroscientists today describe dopamine less as pleasure and more as motivation, pursuit, and learning. Researchers like Dr. Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan have spent decades studying the distinction between liking and wanting. And they're not the same thing. You can want something intensely without actually enjoying it very much. Think about scrolling social media, checking notifications, refreshing your inbox. The wanting can become stronger than the reward itself. Romantic attraction sometimes works the same way, especially when access to the reward is uncertain. Your brain starts anticipating, wondering, searching, and anticipation can become a powerful emotional force all on its own. But there's another layer, and it has nothing to do with romance. At least not directly. It has to do with value. Humans often assume scarce things are valuable. If something is hard to get, your brain automatically pays attention. Psychologists call this the scarcity effect. A classic demonstration came from research by Stephen Wurtzel and colleagues in the 1970s. Participants valued identical cookies more highly when they came from a nearly empty jar than from a full jar. Same cookies, different perception. Scarcity changed value. Now apply that to people. If someone's attention feels rare, if their affection feels limited, if their approval seems difficult to earn, your brain may unconsciously treat that approval as more valuable, not necessarily because the person is better, but because they're harder to obtain. And here's where things start getting dangerous. Your brain can accidentally confuse difficulty with worth. The challenge itself begins to create attraction. But that's still not the whole story. Because often, what hurts most isn't losing the person. It's what the rejection appears to say about you. Think about the thoughts people have after rejection. What do they have that I don't? Why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? Notice something? The focus shifts. It stops being about the other person. It becomes about identity, about self-worth, about belonging. And your brain takes threats to belonging very seriously. In 2003, researchers Naomi Eisenberger, Matthew Lieberman, and Kipling Williams conducted a famous experiment called cyberball. Participants believed they were playing a simple online ball-tossing game with other people. Then they were excluded. The other players stopped throwing them the ball. That's it. No insults, no arguments, no hostility, just exclusion. Yet participants experienced genuine distress, and brain imaging suggested overlap between social pain and some of the systems involved in physical pain. The message was powerful. Your brain treats social rejection as a meaningful threat. Not because you're weak, because throughout human history, belonging mattered. A lot. For most of our species' existence, being excluded from your group could have serious consequences. So your brain evolved to care deeply about acceptance and deeply about rejection. Now here's the part almost nobody talks about. Sometimes you're not actually in love with the person. You're in love with the possibility, the future version, the imagined version, the version that finally chooses you. Your brain is incredibly good at simulation. It constantly creates possible futures. And when a relationship remains unresolved, those simulations can keep running for months or years. You imagine conversations, dates, reunions, what they might eventually realize, what they might eventually say. The relationship becomes partly real and partly fictional. And fictional relationships have one huge advantage. Reality can't disappoint them because they're happening entirely inside your head. This helps explain something strange. Why closure often feels less satisfying than expected. People imagine closure as the magical moment when everything suddenly makes sense. But many times, closure arrives and the feelings remain. Because what you lost wasn't just the relationship. You lost the future your brain had built around it. The imagined life. The imagined possibilities. The imagined story. And grieving a future can feel just as painful as grieving a reality. But here's the biggest twist. The people who don't like you back often become mirrors. Not mirrors of who they are. Mirrors of what you want, what you fear, what you believe about yourself. Sometimes the obsession isn't really about them. It's about proving something. That you're lovable, that you're attractive, that you're worthy, that you're enough. The person becomes a test. And your brain hates failing tests, which is why letting go can feel so difficult. You're not just letting go of them. You're letting go of what their approval seemed to mean. And here's the truth that changes everything. Someone not choosing you doesn't automatically make them valuable. And someone choosing you doesn't automatically make them ordinary. But your brain often acts as if scarcity equals worth, as if difficulty equals destiny, as if rejection means there's something special waiting to be won. Sometimes that's true. Often it isn't. Sometimes the strongest attraction isn't evidence of love. It's evidence of uncertainty. And uncertainty is one of the most powerful psychological forces your brain can experience. So the next time you find yourself thinking about someone who never really chose you, ask a different question. Not, why don't they want me? But, what is my brain actually chasing here? Because the answer may have less to do with them than you think, and more to do with how your mind handles uncertainty, belonging, identity, and hope. Which is both comforting and slightly unsettling, because it means the person occupying your thoughts might not be the real story at all. The real story might be the hidden machinery inside your own head. This is science behind you. And if you want to uncover more of the strange psychological tricks, hidden brain systems, and biological forces quietly shaping your everyday life, there's a lot more going on back there than you think. Subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.